300 corroded teeth, turning under the Aegean, kept a calendar older than Rome.
I am Dr. Elias Thorn. We will read the registers and trace those calculations from clay to gear to lodge.
Begin with a single contradiction in the record. Accurate algorithmic computation appears far earlier and in far more media than standard linear narratives admit.
MUL.APIN, a Neo-Assyrian corpus, copied and recirculated, that contains systematic lunar solar tables and maimed star lists used as working computational registers.
Those tablets do precise work: intercalation rules, helical rising counts, and interval arithmetic, procedural rules a temple scribe could apply to align civil and ritual time. Egypt supplies a second strand: decanal lists carved into tomb ceilings and coffins, dating to Old Kingdom contexts, forming a 36-part nocturnal grid used to partition hours and anchor festival cycles.
And then the island of corroded bronze, the Antikythera mechanism, dated roughly to 150 to 100 BCE, which externalizes calendrical computation into complex gearing.
Why do these three strands matter when taken together?
Because they show computation as a portable, institutional technology, not merely as isolated facts or curiosities, but as repeatable procedural knowledge circulating through distinct media.
Let us read the records closely. MUL.APIN presents named stars, helical events, degree positions, and cumulative day counts in ordered sequences that operate as algorithmic instructions. How would a scribe use such a table in practice?
A scribe reads the named star, notes the helical rising, applies an interval count, and adjusts the lunisolar record. Intercalation becomes rule-based procedure rather than ad hoc memory.
Enuma, Anu, and Lil supplements this with eclipse logs, entries that tie months and days to observable lunar anomalies, and omen formulations that allowed retrospective Saros-like calculations.
In Alexandria, papyrus fragments and scholia preserve commentary on positional arithmetic, chordal geometry, and intercalibration, Hellenistic synthesis of Babylonian and Egyptian computational practice.
The Antikythera device makes this procedural vocabulary tangible: gear trains that implement numerical ratios instead of relying on memorized tables. Freeth et al., 2006. Tomography reconstructed gear sequences demonstrating Metonic and Saros relationships. A mechanical analog of interval arithmetic recorded in Babylonian tablets. The device contains compound trains, zodiacal dials, and inscriptions in Koine Greek that label lunisolar correlations, evidence of algorithmic intention, not decorative imitation.
Now follow the transmission lines. Temple schools and House of Tablets ateliers maintained procedural registers. These registers fed civic astronomers and Hellenistic scholars who synthesized computational forms. Pythagorean fragments, recorded by Porphyry and Iamblichus, place number and ratio at the heart of cosmological computation, a mathematical vocabulary that could be applied practically as algorithmic instruction.
Mithraic Mithraea use stellar iconography and ritual sequencing that maps liturgy onto celestial staging. Those stone schemata operate as mnemonic devices for calendrical procedure.
Early modern esoteric literature repackages algorithmic forms in allegory. The Rosicrucian manifestos employ emblematic geometries that, when read against lodge inventories and mathematical treatises, reveal computational recipes in symbolic form. Freemasonry's early ritual books and the Anderson constitutions preserve proportional modules,
and calendrical metaphors embedded in operative guild practice.
Across these contexts, the same computational motifs recur: metonic alignment, Saros periodicity, decanal partitioning, and proportional geometry, consistent procedural forms rather than identical institutional authorship.
What system does this pattern reveal? Astral algorithms functioned as infrastructural technology. They regulated ritual timing, underwrote legal solar contracts, enabled maritime navigation, and created a monopoly of temporal certitude for institutions that relied on predictability.
That monopoly mattered. When timing governs taxation, festival legitimacy, and sea roads, the capacity to compute time becomes a social instrument of governance.
Material traces confirm operational continuity. Decanal ceilings, Mithraic relief schemata, manuscript marginalia, and tool-mark proportional systems in sacred architecture all externalize calculation into durable media.
Externalized algorithms meant initiates received both calculation training and ritual authorization, procedure paired with institutional legitimacy. Conservatively stated, the transmission forms a lattice, not a single unbroken lineage, but recurrent technical forms reproduced across temple schools, Hellenistic synthesis, mechanized instruments, and early modern lodge archives.
That dual nature explains intent. Practical governance, ritual legitimacy, navigational safety, each depends on shared temporal certainties.
In the frameworks compiled by Skye Alden, this collection of practices is best described as a geometric codic technology, rules for producing calendrical truth, encoded into architecture, manuscript rolls, and mechanical artifacts to preserve governance capacity.
The archive supplies the verification. Museum catalogs, Assyriological editions of MUL.APIN, editions of Enuma Anu Enlil, Freeth's tomography papers on Antikythera, translations of Pythagorean testimonia, and the early modern manifestos are all cited in the episode notes.
For independent verification, consult those primary sources. The computational overlaps are demonstrable in the metonic ratios, Saros periodicities, and decanal partitioning preserved across media. If you require the annotated bibliography and a downloadable transcription cross-referenced to Skye Alden's compendium, the archive entry for this episode contains those resources.
The archive never lies. The text remains. That concludes our historical tracking of this specific anomaly within the Codex. The records demonstrate that behind the curtain of standard history lies a repeating systemic mechanism of knowledge transmission and governance preserved across generations. We have laid out the timeline, parsed the primary source texts, and exposed the architectural blueprint. The archive remains open for those who know how to read it.